Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome to first Latvenergo webinar. Today we are hosted by Zane Kotāne, Latvenergo Chief Financial Officer. During the webinar, you will be informed about Latvenergo Group audited financial results of 2014, group operating environment and key indicators. Before the presentation begins, a quick reminder for those who have joined us for the first time. Right after the presentation, we will open the floor for questions and answers session. Please use the question box on your right side of the screen to send in questions. We have also received questions via email and investors portal naudaslietas.lv that will be given preference. We will address the rest of the questions afterwards. Ms. Kotāne, I invite you to proceed with the presentation.
Thank you. Dear ladies and gentlemen, let me invite you to the first Latvenergo webinar. My name is Zane Kotāne, and I am Chief Financial Officer and Management Board Member of Latvenergo Group. It's our intention that this will not stay as one-off event, and that we will develop webinar as a regular communication channel with our investors and other stakeholders. So your feedback and recommendations would be very welcome. Let's proceed to the agenda of the presentation. As already mentioned, we will structure our presentation in two different parts. As this is our first webinar, we will start with short introduction of Latvenergo Group, and then we will follow with financials for 2014. To start with group profile, Latvenergo is a vertically integrated utility which operates in all three Baltic countries. We are 100% owned by Republic of Latvia. The group employs 4,600 people, and we have external credit rating of Baa2 with stable outlook issued by Moody's. Credit rating of the group has been last time upgraded on February 16th this year. If I continue with our operations, then our key generation assets are hydropower plants and combined heat and power plants. Capacities installed on these units are listed on the slide, and I will not repeat them again. If we look at the lengths of our power lines, which determines our business of transmission and distribution segments, then it's approximately 100,000 kilometers of lines which we have to manage and operate. From the retail perspective, we serve 876,000 clients in Baltics, and our market share has been around 35% in 2014. Regarding the financial ratios, last 3 years have been very positive for the group, and the revenues have been exceeding 1 billion euros with a very stable EBITDA margin of 23%. Our net debt to EBITDA has been increasing last years and has reached highest level at 3.0 in 2014. I will cover shortly what are the reasons for such increase. Capital ratio has been stable around the 58%, and assets of the group is 3.5 billion euros. If you look from operating figures, I would like to mention the first two as the key ones determining the performance in 2014. The first is retail electricity supply, which is 9% up compared to prior year. And the other, which is less fortunate, is electricity generation decrease, which is linked to water inflow in River Daugava, and also we'll cover a bit more detail later in presentation. But basically, we have experienced very low year last year with 25% lower output from electricity generation. Let me proceed with the next slide, which is Latvenergo Group structure. If you look from management point of view, then Latvenergo Group sees its business in 3 separate segments. The first segment is generation and supply, which is actually the largest segment of the group, comprising 62% of revenues and 39% of EBITDA. And it consists of 5 entities in the group. To stress out the ones which are more like interesting for employees of Latvenergo is Elektromestie and Elektrum Lietuva, which are our trading companies, and thus representing our brands in Estonia and Lithuania. Also, to set something which is new in 2014 is Enerģijas Publiskais Tirgotājs. This entity was established last year and has been taking over mandatory procurement administration from the group, and also will be covering a bit detail what are implications of such new transaction. The distribution segment consists 27% of revenues and 39% of EBITDA, and is represented by one entity, which is Sadala Stīkls. Those operations are only within borders of Latvia. Regarding management of transmission system assets, in Latvia we have implemented the unbundling directive, and operations of transmission system are not within the group, but a separate company is managing it under supervision of Ministry of Finance. What we have within the group is basically transmission system assets which are leased to the operator, and represented by one entity, which is Latvijas Elektriskie tīkli. Then if we move for the environment in which group operates, then I would like to stress interconnections as one of the drivers of influencing our operations. Common Nordic electricity market is open since June 2013, and Baltic region is integrated within the wider Nordic electricity market. If we see what are the drivers which influence pricing, electricity prices in the region, then in the beginning of 2014, additional connection between Estonia and Finland is launched. Thus, the prices in Estonia and Finland are similar. If we look then down between Latvia and Lithuania, we can see that there is actually lack of capacity between Latvia and Estonia. Thus, pricing in Latvia is different than pricing in Estonia and Finland. And what is next than Latvia and Lithuania is in the same pricing region, in the same bidding area, and the prices between Latvia and Lithuania are equal, 99.7% ours. So if we look for the future of the market, what we see as a key events happening in the future influencing our operations is the first one, link between Lithuania and Sweden. This 700 megawatt link will be operational at the end of 2015, so we see that 2016 could bring new kind of highlights between pricing in Baltic markets. And also what is currently starting is a link between Latvia and Estonia. The operation of that is expected 2019-2020. Once that is operational, then we also would experience that there is no so high pricing differences between Latvia and Estonia. What it all implies is that if we see that there has been a price decrease in Finland by 13% in 2014, then in our region, which is basically Latvia and Lithuania, we have experienced the price increase by 2%. So some of the factors which you would see in Nordic countries are not directly corresponding with activities in Latvia. Then if we move to the next slide, then I would like to talk a bit about regulatory framework. Still, more than 50% of our revenues are generated within regulatory business segments. If we start with power generation, which is the first part, which is partly regulated, we receive support mechanism for our CHP units. Since 2014, we do not receive compensation for variable costs, which are gas and other variable costs, but we receive a capacity payment, a net of subsidized energy tax, which is also introduced in 2014. But from operational mode, our units, CHP units, are participating in the market, so through the daily bidding, and so it's very important to be competitive in the market to be operational on an everyday mode. If we look next, then our two segments, which are transmission system and distribution system, those depend on tariffs approved by the regulator, and the last part of our operations, which is electricity trade, which historically has been a regulatory business, is not regulated since 2015. If I summarize the market opening activities, then at the moment I can say that Estonia is 100% open and deregulated. Latvia is 100% open, and households are just from beginning of 2015 and 100% also deregulated. Regarding Lithuania, market is open, but still there is 75% customers which can acquire electricity through regulated tariffs. If I summarize the impact of this market opening for financials of 2014, then what we have already disclosed in our unaudited results that lost revenues due to electricity supply at regulated tariff for 2014 amounts to 48.2 million euros. This is something which shall not continue going forward. As I mentioned, the household market is open from beginning of 2015. Since market opening, we have one more new regulation which impacts our operations, but I would say the impact of this new regulation is not significant. During 2015, based on the law of after market opening, Latvenergo has to supply certain amount of electricity to vulnerable customers. In our case, these vulnerable customers are approximately 70,000 customers, which are large families and low-income individuals, which shall receive monthly support at a discounted price. Total impact of such, as I mentioned, is not significant, and moreover, we expect that, at least in current law, it prescribes that from 2016, the state will co-finance such supply, and there will be tendering of supply opportunity among all the suppliers in the market. If I continue with strategy of the group, our strategy was approved in 2012, and it's the period for the strategy is starting from 2012 up to 2016. And there are three key targets which are set in our strategy. As 2014 is middle time for the strategy, there's some results which we can already summarize and also comment on what are the future steps in each of these targets. If I start with the first target, which is strengthening of market position in Baltics, then this has been set with the outlook that there will be market opening in all three Baltic countries, and up to the time when actually Baltics become connected with Nordic market, it's a time when to acquire market share and when to strengthen both capabilities and also like communication networks to work with a larger client base, not only in Latvia but also outside our local market in Lithuania and Estonia. What are the results at the end of 2014? We see that more than 1/3 of retail electricity supplied outside Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia. We have developed our trademark Electrum, which is recognized in also other two countries and not directly associated with Latvenergo and Latvia. So we have defined that all three markets are our home markets, and we serve the clients regardless of their location. We have also invested in software and IT solutions to assist client servicing. If I look for the next target, which is balanced distribution network, we have worked with wider public to discuss what are the priorities of investments in distribution network, and during the last year, distribution network modernization has been launched. It's a plan for 2023, and so we have detailed programs which we are planning to ongo within the distribution network investments. Also, we have started, similar to other countries, rollout of smart meters. So that's also one of the initiatives under that strategic target. If I look for the third target, then that is diversification of electricity generation. Within that target, when we were looking at that, we were discussing that we have to modernize our generation capacities and be more ready for market changes. What we are doing, we have done modernization of existing CHP plants, and we are also ongoing with programs how to improve outputs of our hydro units. That will be covered in more detail under our investment part of the presentation. If that's for the overview of our kind of operating environment and general group operations, and let me proceed more with financials for 2014. I will start with key financial figures, and to start with is our revenue numbers. As I was explaining, during these 5 years we have experienced revenue growth with quite stable EBITDA. Assets also have been growing or basically recently stable at around 3.5 billion euros. From EBITDA margin perspective, 2010 was rather outstanding, and the remaining years are more characterizing our general operation levels, and I will also proceed a bit later with profitability kind of drivers which mostly impact our business. Regarding capital ratio, it's stable across 58%. And then I would like to comment a bit on net debt to EBITDA, which has been growing and has reached 3.0 at the end of 2014. The reason for such increase is related to lower EBITDA level than we anticipated due to delay in market opening. As I was mentioning already before, we have lost revenue due to not opening, still supplying to the customers at lower tariffs than the market price. So if I would just take into account this lost revenue from supply at regulated tariffs, then our net debt to EBITDA would decrease back to 2.5, which is the level which we would intend to remain. Then our investments have been a bit lower this year compared to the prior years, which is more related to the fact that some of the major capital projects have been ending last 2 years, and we are in the beginning of starting the new ones. And I also will cover in more detail what are the current key projects and how we are intending to proceed with them. If I move to detailed analysis of revenue and EBITDA, then I would like to stress one more time that during the last 5 years our revenues have been growing, except for the last year, which is related to transfer of this public procurement administration from Latvenergo to our subsidiary Enerģijas Publiskais Tirgotājs. Mainly, if prior to that transfer revenues were recorded within profit and loss statement of the group, then after establishment of that subsidiary, the subsidiary works as agent in terms of collecting money from customers and paying to the generators, and all the incoming transactions and outgoing transactions are included in balance sheet of the group instead of in profit and loss statement. That's why there is a slight decrease of revenues compared to prior year. If I look later for the electricity supply by countries, then if in 2010 we had less than 10% of total supply outside Latvia, then currently, as I mentioned, more than 1/3 of the electricity is supplied to the customers outside Latvia, which shows that this revenue growth is actually supported by successful operations within the open electricity market, which was our key strategic challenge to actually find the ways how to operate in the market and how to sustain our revenues and market share. As I mentioned, our market share has been around 30% in the retail electricity market. If I look at profitability measure, which is basically EBITDA margin, then there are several factors which are influencing the EBITDA levels and thus margins. The first, of course, is supply of electricity either at market rate or at regulated tariffs. Our last regulatory change was in 2011. So since then there has been some gap between the market prices and the regulated tariff. On the other hand, what influences our profitability is, of course, our generating amounts, and in a way what we supply to the clients is more than we generate ourselves. So we are net importer of the electricity most of the time, except a couple of months per year when we are having higher water inflows in Daugava River. And Daugava River is actually the one which mostly influences our EBITDA margins. If you look at 2014, then what we see that this has been a very low year in terms of water inflow. Water inflow is 35% below average annual output, and similar situation has been experienced last time in 1976, so we really hope that it will not continue or basically repeat in the near future. So that has been the reason why maybe this year, 2014, has not been so successful than we would ideally hope for, and that's what also explains our EBITDA margin levels. If I move to next slide, regarding the balance sheet, then I would like to stress that Latvenergo has actually a very strong balance sheet. Out of total assets, 90% are non-current assets, which are mostly held in regulated business segments. So basically, distribution and transmission is our regulated segments where most of the assets are actually located. Regarding revaluation, our assets are either revaluated or recently built, like CH3 units. So I can say that we are sure that our assets are at the fair value recorded in our books. So it actually represents what is a reasonable replacement costs of the assets. If I move to the next slide, then I would like to stress a bit more about mandatory procurement. Mandatory procurement is specific from one country to the other, and there are some implications which are particular to the group, and to understand those I would need to just briefly touch about general scheme. What we have in Latvia is that we have two types of mandatory procurements. One is that generators can sell their electricity produced at mandatory procurement at guaranteed fee, and the other is payments for capacity, similarly as received by our cogeneration unit. And those payments are managed by our subsidiary. If we see from total amounts, then these mandatory procurement expenditures in 2014 has been 245 million euros. And what is the general structure is that those payments can be recovered with 1 year delay, meaning the payments for 2014 is setting up the public service obligation fee for the next year. Public service obligation fee is the fee which is included in the bills of all customers. In Latvia, we have that public service obligation fee is paid proportionally to the consumption. So all the clients, regardless of households or industrial users, receive exactly the same fee. This is then the fee which generates income in 2013-2014. And what was decided in Latvia approximately a year ago is that Latvia, as a political level, would like to keep the fee to the customers relatively stable, and thus there is a state subsidy to support that there is no increase for the customers on this public service obligation fee. Regarding that state subsidy, we have received the subsidy for 2014 in the amount of 29.3 million euros. At the moment, the cash is received, but it's restricted use, and the restriction will be freed once there is acceptance from EU. And that's the impact that we have in 2014 regarding mandatory procurement. As I mentioned, all these transactions, if were included in a profit and loss statement in 2013, then the current year all these transactions are included within the balance sheet of the group. Regarding debt and liquidity of the group, I would say that we have our total debt is 827 million euros. With launch of domestic bonds, we have been trying to diversify our lenders by category, and we have reached the level that our domestic bonds are 13% of total portfolio. At the same time, still our major lenders are foreign investment banks, followed by commercial banks. If I look from our key highlights, then I would like to stress that we have, I think, relatively well-presented debt repayment schedule. We don't have particular peaks in 1 year, and we manage our financial risks through setting limits of our each risk perspective. What we see at the end of the year, we have 40% of our borrowings are at fixed interest rate, and our average interest rate is 2.47%. Still important to mention that in late 2014 we have attracted additional funding of 250 million euros, which are coming from two sources. Again, changing a bit our categories of lenders. From commercial banks, we have received loans of 150 million euros, and from European Investment Bank, which is under foreign investment banks, is 100 million euros. And of course, we are complying with all predefined financial covenants. Regarding liquidity position, then besides the short-term bank deposits and cash, which is on a balance sheet, we also have these additional liquidity reserves, which we would count in our liquidity position. Then regarding investments, as I was mentioning, 2014 has been a bit low year in terms of investments, and it's related to the fact that our key investment projects in prior years have been ending in 2014. In particular, we have during 2014 we completed the second stage of our Nordbolt project, Kurzeme, which we can see also that has been quite high percentage in investments during the last couple of years. Then, as I mentioned also, we have developed a distribution network plan, which is long-term plan defining priorities where we would invest our money in distribution preferences. And generally, if I look from 2014, this distribution has been major part of our investments during last year. Besides these distribution projects, we also continue with modernization of current generation assets. What I would like to stress that regardless of the fact that CHP units are just finished and launched in 2013, we are ongoing with review how these units can work effectively in the market, how they can reach flexibility to be more business oriented. So what we are seeing that we are trying to put additional investments such as this OPLEX reserve turn down and auto tune, which helps to put the stations at lower capacities without switching off, and thus being capable of more flexibly reacting to the market price differences if required. Also, it helps with the point that if there are some developments in a gas market and you have gas from different sources, then these investments would help us to actually operate within different gas parameters. Then regarding the key projects, if I look a bit forward, then the two key projects which I would like to stress for future years is still Nordbolt projects, 330 kilowatt Kurzeme project, where we would continue with a third round. The total investments would be around 220 million euros, and expected completion is 2019. And that project is within our transmission system segment. And the second project, which is just starting and would continue up to 2022, is the reconstruction of our Daugava hydro units, where we are replacing one by one all the units which have worked already their useful lives and thus require new investments. And with these investments, we are not just replacing old units, but also trying to improve efficiency, taking into account new market conditions, meaning that we are not maximizing output in a couple of months when we have high water outputs, but rather actually maximizing the medium level of water, which is in peak hours, to get gradual this generation increase in each hour when the hydro units are actually operating. That's it for my side about operations and financials, and I will give back to Lasma for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Now we will proceed with the questions in the order they were received. But before, I would like to remind you that you can send in questions in the section on the right side of your screen. First question. Is Latvenergo planning a new issue of bonds? Will private individuals be allowed to subscribe?
Thank you for the question. As I have been mentioning on several occasions, I hope and we really plan that Latvenergo will become a frequent issuer in Baltic markets. What is our intention? That we are not wishing to go to Eurobond market and attract financing in one round of 300 million euros or 500 million euros. As you see, it doesn't and wouldn't fit well with our investment targets. On local market, yes, we are considering, we are monitoring, and we would be ready to go out with issues as, if the market allows and if we are also internally ready. Regarding private individuals, I think we are public company, and from that perspective we would like to foster development of capital markets in Baltics, so it's our intention that similarly as with the first issue we would not like to exclude anyhow private individuals. Thus we are not intending to increase the nominal values of the bonds or like the thresholds with which you can subscribe. Regarding the tactics, when and how and what, and either it's a primary issue or secondary issue, that's of course question of each particular issue. So that is more question of techniques. But from strategic point of view, yes, we would be going out, and we would be making sure that also private individuals can participate in our issues. Back to Lasma.
Thank you for an answer. The next question. Has Latvenergo lost a significant market share after the opening of the electricity market in Latvia? How did it affect the total income of Latvenergo?
Thank you for the question. I will start with the second part, it's easier to remember. The second part regarding total income, as I was mentioning, the market is open just in 2015, so 2014 revenues and numbers are not influenced with market opening. The other way around, it's basically not earned revenues from supplying at lower tariffs. If I talk about 2015, of course the numbers are early to say, just a couple of months in a new market, but what we see, the tendencies are rather positive for us, and there has not been significant shifts in our customers. But similarly, we see also that experience in other markets, that also in Estonia, it wasn't really that customers immediately started shifting the clients. So I would say at the moment it's positive, but too early to say that we have win or gain a very sustainable market share. And of course, from 100% market share, there is only one way where to go. So what we are rather trying to do is to increase our presence in Lithuania and Estonia, and thus be ready to potential decrease of market share in Latvia. Back to Lasma.
Thank you for an answer. The next question is from a participant here in the webinar. There are speculations that European Central Bank in nearest time could allow national central banks to buy bonds issued by state-owned companies, thus also Latvenergo. In what way would this affect Latvenergo? Could you hope for even a cheaper money?
Of course, if that opportunity would exist, we would consider, but our information, at least our analysis, shows that we would not qualify under such buying of bonds. And let's say I would say that we would be similar as any market players in that respect as to such activities, how they would impact the price of the money. So I wouldn't say that Latvenergo is anyhow in different position as our other corporates in Baltics or even in Europe. So I don't see that we have any other conditions or opportunities. Back to Lasma.
Thank you for an answer. We have one more question. Before I proceed, I would like to remind you that you can type in your questions on the right side of your screen in a question box. So the last question, are you affected by the political instability in Europe due to recent events in Ukraine and Russia? If yes, to which extent?
Thank you for the answer. I think we are indirectly affected. In a way, how we see it is we see that our use of electricity, or basically demand, is influenced by the fact if industrial users start to use less, or basically if industrials are somehow influenced by what is happening in Ukraine and Russia. We don't have direct transactions with any of these countries, and also we don't see that directly our revenues would be impacted by operations in these countries. Generally, I would say that environment or our demand is relatively correlating with GDP growth. So if there is, of course, changes in predictions of GDP growth, that could impact our operations, and especially if some large players are particularly impacted in their expansion to these markets. Thank you. Back to Lasma.
As I see there are no more questions typed in, maybe we can wait a couple of moments. Maybe somebody is typing in. As I see, all questions are no. There is one question sent in. Please comment on the competitiveness of Riga CHP plants in the current fuel price environment.
Thank you for the question. As I was already explaining, since we don't receive any more subsidies for variable costs, CHP plants are operating in the market, meaning that we have to analyze at what hours we can produce electricity at competitive price and at what hours we are not capable of working. If I put it in more general terms, then at the time when we are able to work at cogeneration mode, our price is competitive. So meaning that during the heat season, at the heat loads, we are capable of actually providing price which is balancing the market. And our investments, which we currently do in these plants, are tailored to actually have even more flexibility, meaning that we can easier switch the plants on and off during the day, or basically even not switch off, but to just decrease the output to adjust to what is the price level. If I generally look that we have been capable of working in the modes that the units are operating during the day when the prices are higher, and that units are idle during the night when we can benefit from cheaper import electricity. So I think that we have been finding the well-balanced way, even without the subsidies of variable costs, and the total impact is rather positive from change in regulation, also from the ability to adopt market price more flexibility. Thank you. Back to Lasma.
Thank you. There is one more question. How do you compete with your competitors in other countries outside home market Latvia? What are your advantages and disadvantages?
Thank you for the question. I think if I look at the Baltic market, then our key competitor is, of course, Latvenergo, and due to the reason that they have similar structure of being vertically integrated utility, which is also involved in several segments, starting with generation, transmission, distribution, and also electricity supply. Our advantage is that we have always defined that our strategy is present in all three Baltic markets. So we have been very early and very focused on being present in the Estonian market immediately once the market was opening, and also spending a lot of efforts in finding the ways how to manage our customers, how to support them, how to service them. So I think that our client knowledge is the one which helps us to have success in these markets. And from business perspective, of course, it's our generation portfolio, which can be natural hedge in times when the market price is more recognized. And as I was also mentioning, what helps in this competitive markets, that we have gone through the process of establishing trademark, which is basically different from our corporate name, so which is Electrum, which is tested in all three markets and perceived as home brand. So, and also both countries have local managing directors which know the local market. So we are really the local players in the markets, and that is what helps us to be competitive in markets. Back to Lasma.
Thank you for your answers and the presentation. All questions are answered, and as I can see, there are no more questions typed in. For your information, the record of the presentation will be available in the Nasdaq Baltic YouTube channel webinar playlist and on investors portal naudaslitas.lv. Ms. Kotāne, thank you for the presentation and for answers given. Guests, thank you for joining.